Hey guys, crazy day today. I've been getting a lot of questions, and I just want to address a couple things right off this bat. So, on Google Classroom and on Remind, a newsletter was sent home yesterday with your schedule. With those schedules, those are the office hours. So, those are the hours that 100% we will be available to answer your questions. We are not going to be giving instruction during that time. We are just going to be on there so we can talk to our students and we can answer you any questions that our students might have. Our office hours at this point are really meant for us to check in with the students, so with all of you, and see how you're doing and if you have any questions and what things you think you should be working on. So, on top of that, we, of course, are available through email and Remind for parents to text us or email us with questions or concerns regarding stuff at home. However, please be patient and understanding that it might take us a little bit to get back to you. I know that Miss Nestor and myself will be contacting homeroom families today, so I will be contacting my homeroom students, and Miss Nestor will be contacting her homeroom students by phone today and tomorrow, and we reached out to Mr. Mays and Mr. Wyckoff to do the same. On top of that, know that we are not video chatting or starting to do that until Monday, and those schedules and those times are in that newsletter. I will post that again on Remind and share that with you. We want you to know that everyone's schedule is going to be different, and we don't expect you to be on that Google Meet for the entire time. That's another thing. We have been going back and forth between Zoom and Google Meet, and we found out Google Meet can be done directly through Google Classroom, so nobody has to sign up through parents' email or things like that with Zoom, and we can still have that video meeting. It's just less hassle for everybody, so we will be using Google Meet. That can be found. I want to show you. So I don't know if you can see this. So this is our Google Classroom screen. This is the AM screen. If you look right here, up in, so it says Hook Nestor AM, it has our class code. Right underneath that is a Google Meet link. So that is what you will click on during your office hour time to see Miss Nestor and myself. Please know that you can use that to chat with your friends and things like that too. We will be posting some expectations before Google Meet because we will have many of us on at once, and we want to make sure we have expectations because we can't all talk at the same time, and we want everyone to feel heard and everyone to feel like they can get their questions answered. I know there's still been issues with YouTube. There's truly nothing I can do on my end. I've had many parents and students reach out to me and tell me I have to turn restrictions off. I do not have any restrictions on my YouTube videos. They're public. There's no age restriction, nothing. I contacted YouTube and they said it's most likely an issue with the link. So you can go and search for the videos. You can say day 6 hook. My actual YouTube name is under my maiden name, Casey Miller. You can search for that as well. Just subscribe to that channel and you will be able to watch those. But please know that these read aloud videos that I'm doing are not mandatory. You do not have to watch them. They're just something extra that I wanted to do for families that could enjoy them. Trying to think what else. A couple people have sent me pictures of the work that they've been doing, or they've emailed me or shared with me different essays, free writes that they've done. Please continue to do that. We love to see that. And just remember that you need to be checking in with us at least once a week, whether that's via email or on our Google Meet office hour time, things like that. You do not have to stay during the whole time. You can just come in and meet with us. You do not have to come both days. You can just come on one. Whatever schedule is going to work for you. We know that everyone has different things going on at home. Everyone is at a different point in their lives at home, and we want to make this as easy as possible. Please, with that being said, please continue to be patient and understanding with the school and with us as teachers. We do not have a lot of control over your technology at home, and we don't have the answers to why certain things are happening or not happening. If you have technology questions, and it's, I know I sent out the Wi-Fi thing, how to fix that, and so is the school. I've sent out some things about YouTube and sent out some things about Google Classroom. If it's not one of those questions, please reach out to the board office and call them, because they'll be able to better direct you to someone in the technology department to answer those questions. A lot of the times, Miss Nestor, myself, Mr. Wyckoff, Mr. Mays, we don't have the answer to those questions, and we don't really know why a Chromebook or a piece of technology is acting a certain way. So it's hard for us to fix that problem for you. Please continue to just be patient with us, be understanding. Realize that we don't have all the answers, and this is a new situation for all of us. This is definitely not an ideal situation. This is not something that us as teachers have really been prepared for, and you as students or families either. It's new to all of us, so please understand that we are doing the best that we can. Something that I was always taught as I was going through the College of Education to get my education degree was that you always had to have a backup, because technology will always fail. Unfortunately, technology is what we have to use right now to communicate. And we have those paper packets that were also sent home, but everything else is done via phone call, text message, email, video. And there's things that are going to fail, and they're out of the control of you, of me, of everybody. So just be patient and understanding, and know that this isn't something that we are well versed in, and we're going to learn every day. I know next week there's going to be a lot of kinks that we're going to have to work out with Google Meet. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of frustration, and I completely understand that. But please be understanding and patient, and realize that we're all learning. There's going to be a learning curve, but we will figure it out, and we are going to do everything that we can to support you. If you have any questions, please just reach out to any of your teachers via email, via text message, remind. And just know that there's other resources, like Mr. Williams is available for counseling and things like that. So please make sure, the only other thing I want to say before I get into our next chapter of Number the Stars, please make sure you're listening to the phone calls that are getting sent home, and make sure you're reading the emails that are coming, not only from me in Remind or Miss Nestor in Remind, but also from the school. As well as any of those Facebook posts. If you are not getting a phone call or you're not getting emails from the school, please call the board office. They will be able to get you on listserv, so you are getting that information, because there's a ton of information going on with that, and there's a ton of information that Miss Nestor and I are also sending out to you. So please make sure you're reading those things carefully, so that way we can keep this communication flowing, but Miss Nestor and I don't have to answer, or the school doesn't have to answer the same questions hundreds of times. All right, so without further ado, we are going to continue on with Number the Stars. Yesterday we read chapter 8, and we found out there is a death in the family. And Anne-Marie ended the chapter saying that she was quite certain that Great Aunt Bert did not exist. So she didn't understand how there could be a death in the family, because this person she had never heard of before. So chapter 9 is called Why Are You Lying? Anne-Marie went outside alone after supper. Through the open kitchen window, she could hear Mama and Ellen talking as they washed the dishes. Christy, she knew, was busy on the floor playing with the old dolls she had found upstairs, the dolls that had been Mama's once, long ago. The kitten had fled when she tried to dress it and disappeared. She wandered to the barn where Uncle Henrik was milking Blossom. He was kneeling under the straw-covered floor beside the cow. He pressed his shoulder against her heavy side, his strong, tanned hands rhythmically urging her milk into the spotless bucket. The God of Thunder sat alertly poised nearby, watching. Blossom looked up at Anne-Marie with big brown eyes, and moved her wrinkled mouth like an old woman adjusting false teeth. Anne-Marie leaned against the ancient, splintery wood of the barn and listened to the sharp rattling sound of the streams of milk as they hit the sides of the bucket. Uncle Henrik glanced over at her and smiled without pausing in the rhythm of milking. He didn't say anything. Through the barn windows, the pinkish light of sunset fell in irregular shapes upon the stacked hay. Flecks of dust and straw floated there in the light. "Uncle Henrik," Anne-Marie said suddenly, her voice cold, "you are lying to me. You and Mama both." His strong hands continued, deftly, pressing like a pulse against the cow. The steady streams of milk still came. He looked at her again, his deep blue eyes kind and questioning. "You are angry," he said. "Yes, Mama has never lied to me before. Never. But I know there is no Great Aunt Bert. Never once in all the stories I've heard and all the old pictures I've seen has there been a Great Aunt Bert." Uncle Henrik sighed. Blossom looked back at him as if to say, almost done, and indeed the streams of milk lessened and slowed. He tugged at the cow gently but firmly, pulling down the last of the milk. The bucket was half full, frothy at the top. Finally, he set it aside and washed the cow's udder with a clean, damp cloth. Then he lifted the bucket to a shelf and covered it. He rubbed the cow's neck affectionately. At last he turned to Anne-Marie and wiped his own hands with the cloths. "How brave are you, little Anne-Marie?" he asked suddenly. She was startled and dismayed. It was a question she did not want to be asked. When she asked it of herself, she didn't like her own answer. "Not very," she confessed, looking at the floor of the barn. Tall Uncle Henrik knelt before her so that his face was level with hers. Behind him, Blossom lowered her head, grasped a mouthful of hay in her mouth, and drew it in with her tongue. The kitten cocked its head, waiting still, hoping for spilled milk. "I think that is not true," Uncle Henrik said. "I think you are like your mama, and like your papa, and like me. Frightened, but determined. And if the time came to be brave, I'm quite sure you would be very, very brave. But," he added, "it is much easier to be brave if you do not know everything. And so your mama does not know everything, neither do I. We only know what we need to know." "Do you understand what I am saying?" he asked, looking into her eyes. Anne-Marie frowned. She wasn't sure. What did bravery mean? She had been very frightened the day, not long ago, though now it seemed far in the past, when the soldier had stopped her on the street and asked questions in his rough voice. And she had not known everything then. She had not known that the Germans were going to take away the Jews, and so when the soldier asked, looking at Anne-Marie that day, what your friend's name, she had been able to answer him, even though she was frightened. If she had known everything, it would have not been so easy to be brave. She began to understand, just a little. "Yes," she said to Uncle Henrik, "I think I understand." "You guessed correctly," he told her. "There is no great Aunt Bert, and never has been. Your mama lied to you, and so did I." "We did so," he explained, "to help you to be brave, because we love you. Will you forgive us for that?" Anne-Marie nodded. She felt older, suddenly. "And I'm not going to tell you any more, not now, for the same reason. Do you understand?" Anne-Marie nodded. Suddenly, there was a noise outside. Uncle Henrik's shoulders stiffened. He rose quickly and went to the window of the barn, stood in the shadows, and looked out. Then he turned back to Anne-Marie. "It is the hearse," he said. "It is Great Aunt Bert who never was," he smiled dryly. "So, my little friend, it is time for the night of mourning to begin. Are you ready?" Anne-Marie took her uncle's hand and led her out and led her from the barn. The gleaming wooden casket rested on supports in the center of the living room and was surrounded by the fragile, papery flowers that Anne-Marie and Ellen had picked that afternoon. Lighted candles stood in holders on the table and cast a soft, flickering light. The hearse had gone, and the solemn-faced men who had carried the casket indoors had gone with it, after speaking quietly to Uncle Henrik. Christy had gone to bed reluctantly, complaining that she wanted to stay up with the others, that she was grown up enough, and that she had never seen a dead person in a closed-up box, and that it wasn't fair. But Mama had been firm, and finally Christy, sulking, had trudged upstairs with the dolls under one arm and the kitten under the other. Ellen was silent and had a sad expression. "I'm so sorry your Aunt Bert died," Anne-Marie heard her say to Mama, who smiled sadly and thanked her. Anne-Marie had listened and said nothing. "So now I, too, am lying," she thought, "to my very best friend. I could tell Ellen that it wasn't true, that there was no great Aunt Bert. I could take her aside and whisper the secret to her so that she wouldn't have to feel sad. But she didn't. She understood that she was protecting Ellen the way her mother had protected her. Although she didn't understand what was happening, or why the casket was there, or who, in truth, was in it, she knew that it was better, safer, for Ellen to believe in great Aunt Bert. So she said nothing. Other people came as the night sky grew darker. A man and a woman, both of them dressed in dark clothing, and a woman carrying a sleeping baby, appeared at the door, and Uncle Henrik gestured them inside. They nodded to Mama and the girls. They went following Uncle Henrik to the living room and sat down. "Friends of great Aunt Bert," Mama said quietly, in response to Anne-Marie's questioning look. Anne-Marie knew that Mama was lying again, and she could see that Mama understood that she knew. They looked at each other for a long time and said nothing. In a moment, with that look, they became equals. From the living room came the sound of a sleepy baby's brief wail. Anne-Marie glanced through the door and saw the woman open her blouse and begin to nurse the infant, who quieted. Another man arrived, an old man, bearded. Quietly, he went to the living room and sat down, saying nothing to the others, who only glanced at him. The young woman lifted her baby's blanket, covering its face. The old man bent his head forward and closed his eyes as if he were praying. His mouth moved silently, forming words that no one could hear. Anne Marie stood in the doorway, watching the mourners as they sat in the candlelit room. Then she turned back to the kitchen and began to help Ellen and Mama as they prepared food. In Copenhagen, she remembered when Lisa died, friends had come to their apartment every evening. All of them had brought food so that Mama wouldn't need to cook. Why hadn't these people brought food? Why didn't they talk? In Copenhagen, even though the talk was sad, people had spoken softly to one another and to Mama and Papa. They had talked about Lisa, remembering happier times. Thinking about it as she sliced cheese in the kitchen, Anne Marie's realized that these people had nothing to talk about. They couldn't speak of happier times with Great Aunt Bert when there had never been a Great Aunt Bert at all. Uncle Henrik came into the kitchen. He glanced at his watch and then at Mama. "It's getting late," he said. "I should go to the boat." He looked worried. He blew out the candle so that there would be no light at all and opened the door. He stared beyond the gnarled apple tree into the darkness. "Good, here they come," he said in a low, relieved voice. "Ellen, come with me." Ellen looked questioningly toward Mama, who nodded. "Go with Henrik," she said. Anne Marie watched, still holding the wedge of firm cheese in her hand, as Ellen followed Uncle Henrik into the yard. She heard a sharp, low cry from Ellen, and then the sound of voices speaking softly. In a moment, Uncle Henrik returned. Behind him was Peter Nielsen. Tonight, Peter went to Mama first and hugged her. Then he hugged Anne Marie and kissed her on the cheek, but he said nothing. There was no playfulness to his affection tonight, just a sense of urgency, of worry. He went immediately into the living room, looked around, and nodded at the silent people there. Ellen was still outside, but in a moment the door opened and she returned, held tightly, like a little girl, her bare legs dangling against her father's chest. Her mother was beside them. And that's where we're going to end. So, I want you to predict, what do you think is going to happen? Ellen's family is back with her. They're sitting in a room with a casket, but there's no Great Aunt Bert, so who's in the casket? What's in the casket? Who are all the other people there that are apparently mourning this person who never existed? Think about what might happen next. Tomorrow I will post another video. Just a reminder, I will be calling some families today and tomorrow, my own homeroom families, just to check on you, see if you have any questions, things like that. If your homeroom teacher does not reach out to you, please email them and see if they can. There are only, I want you to all have your questions answered. So I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you soon. Love you. Bye.